Hi, I'm Tracy from the Passionate Spinner podcast, and I've decided to do a book update video kind of because I've been reading a lot this year and I enjoy it when, people talk about the books they've read. So I decided to make a video of, the books I've read myself. I have read 18 books so far this year, and that is a lot for me. And I'm going to talk about all of them now. So get ready. I brought my reading journal. I set this one up for this year for the first time, really. And I am going to go through all of the books I've read so far this year. Somewhere in here I have a master list. Here it is. So here's my master list. The first book that I read this year was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It is the first book in the Cruel Prince trilogy. I'm not sure if that's the name. And I listened to that as an audiobook. So I brought the screenshots from my Goodreads, finished this book kind of thing. It is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I gave it 3 stars. As you can see, I didn't love this. I know a lot of people just loved this book so much, and I just didn't. It's about a girl. I think her name is Jude, but I could be wrong. See, it's that memorable. And she's a human girl, and she has been kind of abducted to live in the fairy world. And everyone hates her, and she hates everyone because she's human and they're not. And then there's the prince, whose name starts with a C, and I think it's Cardin, maybe. And I think this should also be like an enemies to lovers romance thing, but I didn't like Jude. I thought she was kind of a bitch, and Cardin was a dick, and I just didn't like this. I didn't. I do have the second book as a ebook. I'm not sure yet if I want to continue, to be honest, because like I said, I just didn't like it. So it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. It was okay, but it's not a series that I will reread a million times. So that's that. Then the next thing I read was also an audiobook. It was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I started this last year and just finished it. I listen to the Harry Potter books roughly once a year, and I listen to them while I sew usually, or do all the work that you have to do before you can actually start sewing. And I do not like J.K. Rowling. However, I have had these books forever. They are a huge part of me growing up. They were the first books I ever read in English, and I cannot not listen to them, So I listened to The Order of the Phoenix. I gave it 5 stars. It's one of my favorites in the series, and I don't think I have to say a lot about Harry Potter, so I just won't. The third book I read this year is a book I read as a physical book, but I cannot show you because I sold it. Now, where is it? It's this one here. It is a history book. It's from Giles Milton. The book is called Vom Mann, der mit 2 Flaschen Whisky den Untergang der Titanic überlebte, in kuriosen Anekdoten durch die Weltgeschichte. And it is basically a history book where you have some short anecdotes from history, It's like 4 or 5 pages per story. And it's just things you don't learn, but that are funny to listen to read about. So yeah, I read this book, but I already sold it to a book reselling thing because it's one of those books I'm not going to read this again. It was fun to read for the first go through and read all about those stories, but I'm not going to read this again. So I got rid of it. Then I gave that 5 stars, that history book, because it was really interesting. The next thing I read was the worst book so far this year. It's called O du Mörderische. I gave this 2 stars, and I do have the book. This is the second book in a series by Anne George. The series itself is called The Southern Sisters. The actual book title for the English book is, where is it? It should tell me. Oh, Murder on a Bad Hair Day. This is from 1996. So that is probably where all of my problems start and end with this book. Because I just thought that the women who are the main protagonists, they are sisters and they're in their 60s, late 60s, and they're just very prejudiced and fat-phobic women. I did not enjoy this book. It was not that hard to find out who it was. It's basically a whodunit. And yeah, I just didn't like it. I finished reading it because I started it and I do not like DNFing books. But I cannot say that I enjoyed it. So this one will go to a free library thingy. Then, next thing I read was also already sold. And it is a memoir. It is Chelsea Handler's Life Will Be the Death of Me. Here we go. This is what it looks like. And I gave it 3 stars. And I always think it's hard to kind of rate a memoir, because who am I to rate your life? So I didn't rate the life she's had. This book is, she is talking about how her brother died of an accident when she was 9 or 10, and how that impacted her life, and that is a very tragic thing. But I didn't quite like her not adulting. I mean, she's not even able to turn on music in her own house. She needs to have her assistant for that. And that is why I gave this 3 stars, because like, really? Seriously? So it's an interesting read, but it's not essential for you to survive. So then there's one more book that I have read. No, I don't even know which ones of these I read in which month, because I have my master list here. So book 6 I read this year was an ebook, and it was called Apple Pie and Arsenic by C.A. Phipps. Somewhere, it should be somewhere. Where is it? I have the screenshots here and it's kind of disappearing on me. Here it is. So Apple Pie and Arsenic is the first book in the Maple Lane Cozy Mysteries. Looks like this. And it was, your generic cozy mystery. I gave it 3 stars because it was okay. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was just okay. It's about a woman whose name I forgot, who moves back to her hometown, of course, after she went to New York to become a baker. And she moves back to her hometown. I think it's somewhere Washington State. And her grandma kind of tricks her into starting a bakery with her in her hometown instead of starting one in New York City. And then someone dies and she helps solve the murder, because it's a cozy mystery and that's what happens. And the sheriff of the town is he the sheriff? I don't even remember. He's a policeman and he's super hot and very single, of course. And her childhood love, crush, teenage, first boyfriend, whatever. And yeah, it's very generic, but it was fun to read, and I probably will continue on with the series. It's on Kindle Unlimited, it's for free, so I'm not losing anything. So, next thing, one of my absolute favorite books. The next thing I finished was The Lord of the Rings, the first book in the series, The Fellowship of the Ring, and nope, not what I wanted. Where are you? Here are you. There you are. So, The Fellowship of the Ring, I listened to the audiobook, and I started listening to audiobooks on 1.2 times speed, because I feel like that is okay. I used to listen to them just normal, but I realized that putting them on 1.2 times speed is more like my own reading speed, so I enjoy that more. I do not do that for Stephen Fry's books. They are normal. But this one, and also, when you listen to The Lord of the Rings on 1.2 times speed, it goes a lot faster. I think I saved 2 hours of this. And of course, as it's The Lord of the Rings, it's my favorite book, or one of my absolute favorites, and I gave it 5 stars. And it's the German audiobook version. I need to listen to it in English someday. But yeah, that's book number 7. Now, book number 8, not so good. Book number 8 was Hamish Macbeth Fischt im Trüben. It's a MC Beaton, the Hamish Macbeth series. It's the first book in the series. I listened to this as an audiobook. I give it 3 stars. And yeah, it's not a favorite of mine. No. It's about the policeman, Hamish Macbeth, who lives somewhere in the Scottish Highlands. And he's always portrayed as being super lazy and just, kind of charms everyone into giving him a scone and a cup of tea, and just, he's portrayed as not very likable. And that's just for the main character. I mean, I don't care for that. So that's one of them. I listened to another one. I'll talk about that in a minute. Then the next thing I finished was A Grave Concern. It's a food truck mystery. I think book 8 in the series, and I have read all the other ones 2 years ago, and I really enjoy these, and they're only like 120 pages. They're super short, but really sweet. It's about this girl. Her name is, what is it? Don't remember. Maybe because they're written from her perspective, so her name doesn't come up all that much. But she inherits a food truck from her aunt. And with that food truck also comes a chef. His name is Land. He's from Spain. And he's a very, very quiet man, but he's quite angry because he was promised a food truck. And he didn't get it. She did. And so they kind of hate on each other, but they have to work together. And yeah, this is, like I said, this book 8 in the series. They are on Kindle Unlimited. I got one gigantic book that has all 14 of these in it. They're all, like I said, very short, just 100 to 120 pages, and so easy to read. They're just... And I gave it 4 stars because I really liked it. In this one, a homeless man turns up dead, and they need to find out what happened. Yeah, I think that's all I can say about it. Because, when there's only 100 pages, if you say more than one sentence, you're already giving away stuff, so I'm not going to do that. Then, after this, came my absolute favorite book of the year so far, or one of my favorites. New favorites, and that is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I do have the actual book, but I gave it to my friend to read, so I cannot show you. And this is an enemies to lovers workplace romance. And I discovered romance books this year. I think this was my first. Was it? Yeah. I did cozy mysteries before, where it's a mystery with a bit of romance put into it. But this was my first actual, real, just romance book. And I'm one of those people, I always kind of look down on the romance genre a bit, like, yeah, great. But I realized I actually really like it. Like, really like it. I think it might be one of my favorite genres. And I've read several already. And it all started with this one, The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. Definite 5-star read. It's about Lucy, who works as the assistant to the CEO of a publishers. And about Josh, who also works as the assistant to the CEO of the publishers. And they merged together and became co-CEOs, and they both kept their assistant. And now Lucy and Josh have to work together. And of course, Josh is smoking, and Lucy is also just beautiful and perfect. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's a great book. Lucy talks about all the games that she and Josh are playing. So the staring game, the hating game, and because they have to work together in one room, you know, but it's clearly that he hates her, and she's just like, no, you will not hate me, you will not win this. So they play games a lot, and it's really fun. Then I read, what did I read then? Oh, the next thing I finished was another audiobook. This time it was Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. It's one of my least favorites in the series, so I gave it only 4.5 stars. And I don't have to say anything about it. Listen to the audiobook read by Stephen Fry. It was good. Next up, another new favorite, The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. This is a really cool book. I read the ebook of this, but I'm considering buying the actual book as well because I just really liked it so much. So, in The Flat Share, 2 people are sharing a flat, but in a very unconventional way. So, Tiffy just recently got out of a relationship, and she needs to find a place to live. And what's his name? Leon. Leon has a flat, but he needs money. So he comes up with the idea of offering his flat throughout the night, because he's a night shift nurse. So Tiffy sees that she sees that this flat is basically for her, for sharing. And she's like, this is perfect. I only need it in the night. You know, I'm gone all day for work. So she signs up with Leon without seeing him because his girlfriend does everything because she doesn't want him to meet Tiffy ever. And they do not meet for the first half year that they share their flat. So they sleep in the same bed, but it's like on different sides. Hers is that side, his is that side. And she cooks and leaves food for him, and they start writing little notes to each other. And it's just a really good book. It's really sweet. I don't know what else to say about it without spoiling a lot, but it's a great book. Then, book number 13 was the next Hamish Macbeth book. Another 3-star book. It's called Hamish Macbeth Geht auf die Pirsch by M.C. Beaton. No idea what the English book title is. I don't really care, to be honest. And I'm not going to continue with the series because it's just it was okay to listen to, but it's not something that I cannot wait to know what happens next, you know? So I will not continue with this. And my feet are falling asleep. I'm sitting on the floor and I realize I'm too old for this shit. My feet are falling asleep, but oh well. So yeah, Hamish Macbeth, the second book in the series and the last book for me, because I do not enjoy the series as much as I thought I would, and I'm not going to waste my time on it. The 14th book is a book I can show you. And it is this book. It's Bill Bailey's Remarkable Guide to Happiness by Bill Bailey. This is Bill Bailey. And I adore Bill Bailey. He's one of my absolute favorite people. And I got this book for my husband for Christmas. And it is a signed copy. And I read one of the chapters every day until I was done. And now my husband is reading it because he likes Bill Bailey as well. This is a book, it's of course a nonfiction book. It's basically about things that will bring you happiness or things that bring him happiness, you know, small things, everyday things that you don't really think about. Like there's a chapter, of course I can't find a chapter now. There's a chapter about paddleboarding or confronting your fears. How that can actually lead to happiness if you do it. one about dancing, one about speaking another language, belonging, sport, wild swimming. You know, there's just all these short little chapters about things that can bring you happiness. And it's a great one. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It's a good book. Then we're in the real books now. The next book I read or finished was The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. It says, let go of who you think you're supposed to be and embrace who you are. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was nice enough to read, but it wasn't really a self-help book in that kind of way for me. It says, in this groundbreaking New York Times bestseller, Dr. Brené Brown, a research professor and thought leader on vulnerability, courage, worthiness, and shame, shares 10 guideposts on the power of wholehearted living, a way of engaging with the world from a piece of worthiness. Yeah, it's okay. It's an okay book. It's not, let's just say my mind is not blown and I'm not now finally learning how to live with my imperfections. So it was okay. Next is, that's an ebook I read. The next book is called Wasted Words. It's by Stacey Hart. It's one of the Kindle Unlimited free ebooks. And this is a Jane Austen Emma retelling. I have not read Emma. I have not seen Emma. I've never read Jane Austen. I've read this book, however. I give it 3 stars because the main character started to really get on my nerves. So this is about, what's her name again? His name's Tyler. Her name is Cameron. So this book is about Cameron and Tyler. They are roommates. Cam works in a bar/bookshop, which is the coolest thing on the ever. It's called Wasted Words. And yeah, it's like I said, it's a bar/bookshop/comic shop. It's amazing. And Tyler is a sports agent. He was on his way to becoming a football pro, but then he had an injury and had to stop, and he became an agent instead. So when he is left by his ex-girlfriend, he moves in with Cam, who has a room open for, you know, someone to share the flat with. And they become friends. And of course, they become more than friends. It's a friends to lovers romance. And Cam is she has relationship anxiety because of something that happened in her youth, you know, when she was like 15. And ever since, she self-sabotaged everything because she thought that adult men behaved like 15-year-olds. And that was where I understand when you have relationship anxiety. I understand that when you get hurt, you're really taking a step back, being very careful about who you let get close to you. But she has basically in her head decided that the guy that hurt her when she was 15, 16, was in a different category as she's herself. You know, she put people on shelves. And he's not on her shelf. He's higher up because he was so much prettier than her. And she's just down here. And it's the same with Tyler, because Tyler is basically the Uber man. He's perfect. And he's tall and ripped and just gorgeous. And she's not. So he's on a different shelf as she is. And so this can never happen because only people from the same shelf are supposed to be together. And that concept alone is just, that's no. No, that's bullshit. And she's priding herself on being a perfect matchmaker. And when her colleague basically shows an interest in a different colleague, you know, her female colleague kind of has a crush on a male colleague, and she thinks, oh, these two are perfect together. So she tries to get them together by all means. But a friend of Tyler's shows an interest in her colleague, and they really click. But according to Cam, her colleague is on a higher shelf than her friend's friend. So they cannot be. And she tries to sabotage that blooming relationship because she's right about this and they're not. I was just like, you know what, woman, you're too much for me. And I did not like that behavior, or, you know, putting people on shelves, you know, or in categories, or saying you're a 10 and I'm just a 7, we can never be together. I was like, oh God, I did not like that at all. The only thing I liked about this book was Tyler, because he not only was the beautiful epitome of mankind, but he was also really nice and kind and friendly and just funny. There's a whole series of these books, not about Cam and Tyler, but about Jane Austen retellings by Stacey Hart. I have downloaded all of them because they're Kindle Unlimited books, and I'm thinking about reading another one to see if I like that one better, but this one I did not like all that much. So, and then we have 2 more actual books that I read. Book number 17 was this book, Just One Damn Thing After Another by Jodi Taylor. It's the first book in the Chronicles of St. Mary's, and this was a fun book. I give it 4 stars. Just a fun book. I mean, this is about a historian, and her name is Madeleine Maxwell, and everyone calls her Max. And yeah, she's a historian, and she gets recruited by St. Mary's, who is basically a time travel agency that is not allowed to interfere with anything. So they basically go back in time, they collect a lot of data, they live in the period, so they can depict history in the way it actually was. And yeah, when Max shows up, everything turns to shit. She's like a disaster magnet, and it's a really fun ride. So she and her colleague, after a lot of training, get sent to the Cretaceous. Is that how you say that in English? Not sure. So they get sent to the dinosaurs, basically. And they take their data, but only one of them returns, and all hell breaks loose. And yeah, it's a fun book. I do have more of them. They are, where are they? Oh, they are up here. You can't see them. But I have the first 3 of those books, and I think there's 15, 14. There's a lot of them. You know, I have 3 of them, and I'm definitely going to continue with the series because this was just really fun and kind of steamy sometimes as well. But, you know, mild. And the last book so far for this year is another romance, and it is If I Never Met You by Mayuri McFarlane. It's this book here, and it's so sweet, and I really like this one. So this book is about, what's her name? Laurie. I always forget the names of the girls. So this book is about Laurie, who after 18 years gets dumped by her boyfriend. And that is not a spoiler. It's the first sentence of the blurb. So Laurie gets dumped by her boyfriend after 18 years. And she was just about, you know, wanting to get pregnant and have a real family with him. And he decides, you know what? Not there yet. So you do you, I do me. And he leaves her. And they, I have to just to check what's already back on here. So they work together in the same firm. They're both lawyers. Laurie and Dan are lawyers. Dan dumps her, but they work in the same firm. So also in that firm works Jamie Carter, who is basically a total playboy. He just, you know, seen with another woman every weekend, doesn't want to have a girlfriend, doesn't want to settle down, but he wants to get promoted at work. And so when they get stuck in an elevator together that's kind of broken, they decide to fake a relationship. So Laurie, can get back at her ex, and Jamie can get a promotion because he's been being seen with one of the most respected lawyers in the firm, and also settling down, you know, behaving in a more adult and whatever way. And it's just really a fun book. The thing I really liked about this book is also some representation, because Laurie is a Black woman or mixed race. I'm not quite sure of her father's race. It doesn't matter. But she's a non-white and she's a lawyer and she's badass. And I really like that because you don't get to see that all that much. And yeah, I mean, really happy with this. I'm just really happy. I love this book. I finished this only a few days ago, and I have another book by the same author. Where is it? Behind me are all my romance books. It's here. Don't You Forget About Me by the same author. I'm going to read that soonish. So yeah, those are the 18 books I've read so far this year. I'm quite happy. I read a lot of physical books. I listened to some audiobooks. I read some ebooks. It was a good mix so far. What I also have in here is a list of the language, and that is not a shock to me. Out of the 18 books I read, 13 were in English and 5 were in German. Because I prefer reading the not translated books, and the first 5 German books I read were all translations. So yeah, that's what's been going on with my reading life so far. I hope you enjoy this. I will keep sitting here because I want to do a second video with all the books I have currently started, because I started a lot of things. But this will be an extra video, so if you're not interested in that, that's fine. I hope you all have a wonderful time, and I hope to be I hope to be back with a more passionate spinner-y video in the near future with some knitting and some fiber artsy stuff, but we'll see how it goes. So I hope you have a wonderful time. Bye.